You know?
I would like to ask a brief question. Since you got into the baling thing, we have all been doing the baling light system.
Yeah.
It's keeping things incredibly stable. So we're talking about this now for those watchers. There is we are pretty used to previous baling systems, and we have been receiving, maybe you have even already answered that, because we have been loving to do our frequent water changes as a source of cleaning purpose.
Yeah.
Cleaning the sandbed, cleaning the sump. So many people have been asking us about there's that idea of part 3 with NaCl free salts, where you would just add equal parts and add NaCl as a source of keeping addition extremely stable.
Yeah.
I believe I was kind of, we have been with that kind of thought for a pretty long time, and I was worried. But incredibly, with the baling light, with the frequent maintenance, we have done my ICP, and there was no ionic imbalance at all.
Usually not.
Yeah.
Very simple. It's a very simple thing, really. The history of the baling method is starting in 94. 94, there was an article about a good friend of mine. This is Mr. Heinz-Werner Balling. He's explaining the system in a coral magazine at this day. So before, we know that system differently. So I work, we had some very big tanks. So I take calcium chloride, and we're taking soda and put it with 25 kilo we put it in the sump and ready. So nobody of us is using the mineral salt, and of course there was not available at this moment. So we do water change and do that, and we did not have that big success. We like 10 years later, where we find out where we can detect the magnesium, potassium, and that things. So we do pure emotional. So then 94, it was explained in an article, and I find out very fast that the whole system is based on a theoretical view. That means I take the calcium, I take the sodium hydrogen carbonate, both those together, I have a rest, and then I put the mineral salt to create sea salt. And you cannot believe what's going on in these years. I was working in one of the biggest pet shops in Europe. We have a 35,000 liter reef tank there, so we have many visitors. And every second question was, what they mean with the building sea salt? I don't understand. It's in water. So, and we explain it, and we explain it, and I was so tired to explain them again that I sit down and I thought, how can I make it more easy? That was the first idea. That's also why I use the name. I create the name Baling Light due to a respect, and the light means easier, not as difficult. I see the people trying to weight up 70.8 grams. No kitchen can do that properly. No one can calculate it properly, because no one knows how many liters I have in my reef tank. So I wanted creating a system where I don't need to weight it. I have and where I can use it for the different tanks depending what they need. So then I cut them away, and I thought, okay, what we do in the reef tank, what we add the whole day. Then I see that we have high sulfate levels all the time, because we put sulfates in the tank too with the food. I see that we have barium enough, because we put it with carbon, we put it with the filter materials in the tank. So then I check it. Okay, what is that what we need? In fact, we need, and I take the mineral salt out. I put it in liquids that I can control. If I need more iodine, I add 1. I create 3 groups. The main group is the strontium group, the trace element, heavy metals, and the halogen group. That was at this time something which was for me the most sensible. I think it's still today the most sensible thing, because if we go on 5, 6, 7 groups, it's too complicated for many people, even when they start. Then I had a problem with the weight. If you have magnesium chloride or calcium chloride, it takes a lot of water. So that means if you buy 1 kilo of calcium chloride, 2-3 weeks later, it's 1.1 kilogram. Due to the hygroscopic effect in the in the plastic bags. Okay, how we can deal with that shit. So then I create a Balling light, and it's a very simple thing. The first is Balling light is made for reef tanks. It's not made to create a natural seawater, because we don't have natural seawater. It's a mistake. It's a theoretical idea, and the trace elements are made to find out as they test the bones of Acropora. Their trace elements, what they find in the bones, they give it to this. And this makes sense for me, because when I test your bones and give you only that to eat what is in your bones, you will die. And at the same time, we add a lot of elements to food, artemia, frozen food. All the trace elements there are in milligrams, not in micrograms. So also I go back, I find out, okay, what we know is we have a kind relation between calcium and strontium. We have a kind relation to other things. This was a really good work from Mr. Balling to find a little bit also this relation. So there was nothing wrong, only the theoretical idea behind. And we were reef keepers. So we had the corals at this time. People who are writing all the articles, they try to keep corals, but till today they are not able to keep them alive. They studied chemistry or something like that and viewed only on a theoretical way. And I don't care about 0.1 grams. I don't care. I don't care about all that shit. So I said, okay, people buying usually 1 kilo or 2 kilos or 5 kilos, whatever. So I make a stock solution. The stock solution should be always same, means 2 kilograms and filling up the canister. If the salt stays 1 year or is wet, it does not matter. Then you fill a little bit less water. But the amount of calcium is always the same. Without that, you need to weigh something, because in the box is 1 kilo. I want to use also the box, because I hate when I have half-filling boxes around the aquarium. So I want to put my stock solution and throw the rest away. The stock solutions are so heavy concentrated that they are stable for many, many years. This stability, and this is why the high amount of calcium and high amount of magnesium or carbonate is in the stock solution, I use, because then my trace elements are really fixed. Later, I add an organic compound to keep the iron out. This is something, sometimes you can find it, that you have precipitations in the canisters down. But this is over. This is iron, which is precipitation out. This comes from these organic compounds. They go together with iron. If it's in solution, the skimmer take it out, because you know that iron, when it's soluted, the skimmer cannot put it out. It can only be put it out when you have an organic compound around. So why we add a little bit of these biopolymers. That's a kind of a polymer which is very long. It's not usable as a carbon source, but it takes magnesium, it takes iron out of the system. So in some water, in some tap water, is sometimes iron a little bit more in, and that you see then in the canisters that you have a precipitations on it. This is the iron over. You can keep them away and cleaning, and you're ready. So the second step was the carbonate. The carbonate is a little bit an issue, because we need a lot of them and it's not good to concentrate. You can work with pure carbonate. You have a higher possibility, but the problem is that you create precipitations when you add it in the tank. How stronger carbonates are concentrated, how stronger the precipitations are. Because in the moment you add it in the tank, you have a bowl of high carbonate, and they react immediately with calcium, with magnesium, and with other carbonates, and fall down. And you can see it in the reef tanks. That was laying down. It's not detritus. Detritus are parts of bacteria, and when you get in the sand, they flow away. Skimmers can take it out. But that what we have goes up and down.
Mm-hmm.
So in the nature, in the Caribbean Sea, we have that very often. This is that's a kind of a calcareous sand. It's not an aragonite, which falling down. It's not creating by corals. It's creating by the seawater. When it's very hot, when it's a little bit power on it, then these type of minerals fall down and creating very large sand areas. So, and this is the same, but in our reef tank, we are so dirty that what's falling out is brown and not white like in the sea. That was the reason why it doesn't flow away, because the bacteria shells, they flow away. This is detritus. That what we have is precipitations. And that is also the depot what we have. So I still work with a small mixture. This is 8% carbonate, and the rest is sodium hydrogen carbonate. We use a very, very clean version without iron. And that we have a lot of dosing. Because for me, it does not matter if you dose a little bit more water or not, because due to the vibration I need water. So I did not lost anything. People said sometimes, oh, we have to dose so much. It's not more than others. The difference is that this concentration is not as that high like I can do chemically, but I want to avoid these precipitations out. And that's the reason why we add it in. And due to the halogens is better, we dose more. So that you dose more often the halogens inside to avoid jumps in fluorine and iodine level. If you use these 25 milliliters in the canisters, this is the base. This is the absolute base, which means on a long time, you're not able with these 25 milliliters to keep a fully stocked aquarium alive. That means the boiling light system goes in the limitation. If that happens, we check strontium, we check a little bit zinc and vanadium, and we detect the iodine, and then we add a little bit more. That means we go from 25 to 30 in strontium. And there's really simple. The half strontium is the double the amount of dosing. So when I have 4 strontium, I dose, and I want 8, I dose 50 milliliters instead of 25. That's it. So this is the base of the calculation. And there's another reason why boiling light is different to all the other boiling systems. And that's the point of the bacteria, which we talked before. In theory, it's right that you have the same amount of this one solution to the other one. So we have the same amount of calcium and carbonate. Okay. This is okay when we talk about that the coral building the bone. Then it's right, absolutely. But our problem,
considering everything that happens in our aquarium is bone formation.
Yeah, no, look, when the coral building skeleton, she needs different type of elements, and she needs a different, and she needs a good amount and a right level of potassium, of fluorine, of iodine, that they can start the process. When you started a reef tank and the bacteria starting, at the first time, they need a lot of carbonate, and it's not in relation to the calcium. Absolutely not.
Exactly. That's the point I'm getting. We're used to think that everything that we are adding is just transforming in bone formation.
Okay. So later then, the bacteria in the biofilm need more calcium. So when I have a system which is in relation, and I have a situation outside which is not, or the need is not in relation, then I have no possibilities to have a success on a long time run. I always say long time, because for me it's a reef tank, not half a year. For me, a reef tank, which means a long time stability, is after 1.5 or 2 years. Then the work starting. Till there, you have a lot of capacity due to the sand and the rocks and do some water change. So the most people is no problem 1 year, 1.5 years. That's not a problem. After, and let me say 6, 7, 8, 10 years, like 15 years, like we run our farm without any issues, without algae. That means to bring in the stability in the system in. And that's why Balling Light is not, it's not in a relation. So you can dose completely different, and that's what we also said. Don't dose only bicarbonate, don't dose only by calcium, dose what you need and add what you need according to strontium, zinc, and iodine. And that's it. So that's the base. It's only the base, nothing more.
And it's been working pretty great with that for us.
It's one of the oldest system on the market. So the first was the explainer as the kind of balling is made in Germany by a guy calling Pavlovsky, and he's written it from a French guy, which described the system in 1850 or something like that. So it's a very old. Because even at this age, the people was not stupid. They know when they can put what is calcium chloride and that things. Then I think I described Balling Light in 96 or 97. I still don't know, never know it, because we don't have Facebook in this time. So we starting to talk with the people and bring them. And so the Balling Light system is over 25 years now in working, and is one of the oldest system on the market. In some countries, we are market leader in the things also. But maybe it would be a good idea if I have given them 25 years another name as Balling Light, but at the end, it's a kind of a balling system, and I want to make it more easy for the people to use and to understand. And that's why the name is creating there. And it was absolutely not to starting a fight or to go against a two-part or against the balling. So in this years, we work more together. I don't know why the people think it's always again, and all the things can be highly discussed. Surely, when I talk with Hans-Werner Balling, like I say, I like him very much and I respect him very well. We had over the years many discussions and fights about details all the time. And if you ask German reefers in the forums during the 2000s. We were not so friendly like today, so we're also getting older and more quiet, but we have really fights over weeks. And he's more the scientist, I'm more the practical guy, and so he said, you and your emotions, and I said, you and your calculation. And I must say, yes, also me was sometimes under the right level, because I'm getting angry. He also, but like I said, we understand very well. We work very well together, and yeah, we still fight sometimes a little bit in small discussions, but it's okay. It's absolutely free. The people must find out what they like to use and how they like to work. And I think the Balling Light system by itself is from beginning on make for reefers and not for aquarium owners. No, that's a little bit, I think, the difference. We will bring a new system out as Fauna Marin as an all-in-one solution, where the people can get calcium, magnesium all in one thing. This is to try to bring the people to the reef keeping, but we describe exactly which type of animals and how to use it so that they can start. But the way is that we said, if you have used that for 1 year and you find out a little bit the fun in reef keeping, then go to the Balling Light and make it correctly. So